Okay. Yeah. So this morning we're going to blow through the solution. Okay. I've got 1 hour, 1 hour to go over the solution. Half an hour to go over some gulp stuff, and 1 hour to go over some new stuff in the other class. So essentially, book-ended all the way till 11:30. Having said that, I also kind of feel like maybe I don't almost need to go over the solution for this, because I just looking at it, like, things are going to be very different for everyone. My solution is obviously going to be very different for you, but I think for the most part, most people kind of got to the end point. Is that accurate? Yeah. Here, let me ask you, do you want me to go over the solution?
How long will that take you? Like,
it'll take me, I don't know, but I only have an hour. So I'll go at a reasonable pace, and then I'll check my watch and see how I'm doing. I think I can do it in an hour reasonably with some talking, as long as I don't get too sidetracked.
I think I would like it because even when I do an assignment and I don't have problems with it, I always find I'll learn things watching you do something a different way.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
There have times where I'm following you and it looks like you've written the same thing I've written, but then there's been times where I'm like, holy shit, what happened here? And it's completely different, right? So
okay, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, I want to see why Promise All is better than class.
I'm sorry?
I want to see why Promise All is better than class. You said that it was
class.
Better
okay.
Than class.
Okay.
Well, another option is explain your code.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's go. So I was prepared for this. I have everything ready. So I've already downloaded and unzipped the demo. Okay. It's right here, incomplete. Okay. I'm going to open it in my VS Code. Oh yeah, I'll share my screen. Okay. Okay. I'm going to open it in my VS Code, and I'm going to commit it. So need to initialize a new repository. I'll do this at the same time. So we'll create a new repository here. GitHub.com. And we'll create a new repo. See, next bus sample. I'll just create that. And just need this. Okay. So we're going to git remote add. I copied that. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to add GitHub as my remote, and committing that. Git add dot git commit. I think I've updated this, so I only have to do this one time. Okay. So we did our initial commit. We're going to branch off, and we're going to get streets. We're going to do the get streets branch. Check out. Okay. All right, so we're on the get streets branch. First thing we got to do here is we're going to want to also open this. And we're going to want to be able to click on this, put an event listener on it, type into that field, hit submit, and display the results, the streets results. Okay. In addition to that, I had mentioned that we're probably going to want to tag a little bit of information onto these, right? Using data, the data attributes, because we're kind of pushing everything into the DOM and then we're forgetting about it. And that's kind of how we need JavaScript interacts with HTML sometimes, is that we put stuff into the DOM and we need to tag it with little bits of information. Otherwise, we have no way of retrieving that information back in JavaScript. Sometimes it could just be something simple, like we can maintain that information in JavaScript, but we need to be able to tie this element to some, maybe an object in JavaScript, okay? But we need some way of tying it. So we often need to put just some little piece of information, an ID, a key, something. So we're gonna be adding a data attribute onto here as well, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tackle this input, okay? So we're going to take a quick look at what that input is, and it's this one right here, the form input, search for street, okay? So we're going to go over to our app here, and we're going to get that, we're going to get this form element, and there's only one form element on this page. So I'm going to do a document, query selector, form, and then we're going to attach an event listener to this form. Form ELE on submit. Okay, and we're going to grab the event, and we're just going to jump into it like that. Okay, so on submit, this event listener will fire. Okay. Now, before the end, because this is a form, we need to do prevent default. If we don't do this, the page will refresh every time we submit the form, and we don't want that. Okay. Now, when someone clicks on this form and submits it, we're going to want to do a couple things. One, we're going to want to get the input element, right? Because I can't access the input element here yet. Like e.target, the form is not the input element. The form itself does not contain the data. It's the input element in the form that contains the data. The other thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to use the value to go get, to go search for buses. To go search for, not for buses, for streets based on the query provided. Okay, so those are really the two things we need to do here. Okay, so I guess you can argue the last thing we need to do is clear the value of the input. Interesting. Sorry, I'm just thinking. Okay, yeah. So we'll do it like that. Clear the value of the input. So first of all, we're going to need to get this input element, okay? And that's going to be on the inside. So that's just the input. So what I like to do here, and this is not uncommon, e.target.query selector input. I bet you there's a child selector too that's probably a little bit maybe quicker than this. I haven't looked into it though. Does anyone know? That's fine. So this will allow us to go deeper inside our e.target. And if remember our e.target is the thing that was submitted or the form, right? So we are able to dig into it and get this input. So we'll just say const input. What's that? Okay. And then we're going to need to obviously clear the value of this input. Input.value equals empty string. Okay. But between us getting this input and clearing the value, we need to get streets essentially, right? And we're going to need to pass it input.value. We need to pass it the value of that what's inside that input, right? Get streets in my head is going to be the function that goes to get the streets from the API. That's how I see it. Okay. And to start, all we need to do is just say get streets. Let's say query, and let's just console log, just to make sure everything's working as we would expect. Okay. We'll go back here. We'll pop up our inspector. We'll refresh. We'll type in everyone. And console log. Hi, everyone. Beautiful. Everything got cleared. Nothing refreshed. That's perfect. All right. Next, we need to fill this out, right? We need to, this would be a good spot to do a commit. Okay, so get add, get commit. Remember, I'm on this branch, get streets. Cool, no problem. Okay, now get streets. This is where we're going to do our fetch. So we're going to do a fetch to the API. I'm just going to go to my solution here and grab my API key and my endpoint. It just makes it a little bit easier. We'll just go to Winnipeg Transit. They have my information. So we're going to be using the streets endpoint here. Okay, and if you went through all of these, that's fine. All right, I'm actually still going through all of them. Expect to use this again in the final project. Okay. Streets, and I'm going to look at examples. I don't want to use the login. Am I not logged in? No. I don't want to use the identity. I don't want to use the ID because I don't have an ID for the street. I want to get a list of all the streets. So I want to use this filter. I suspect you could probably also use this wildcard thing. But I don't know. I wonder what the difference is. Pam, like to me, they kind of look the same. These ones kind of look the same, the wildcard and the filter. So I'm just going to use filter. So we're looking at it like this, essentially. I just clicked on it, opens it in a new window, and then I could just copy and paste that URL and make the changes I need to. So is this my key? I think that's my key. Yeah, that's my API key. So generally, I like to put my API key in a variable, just in case I need to change it. It's really easy to change. Sometimes you need to expire your API keys because over time, they're like passwords, right? Someone could take it, or you might need to have multiples, or you might be sharing your project with someone else, and you might need to manage that in a different way. So it's just a good habit to get into, to put these into variables. And the name is not going to be portage, obviously. The name is going to be query that I'm accepting from the input. So I'm going to get rid of portage, and I'm going to put in query. So there's my fetch. Okay. So now I'm going to say then response.json. Then let's just call it data, and let's console log this data. And let's take a look at that. We'll pop on over to our browser here. Oh, I haven't seen that in a long time. I'll pop on over to our browser here. We'll refresh and type something in, Pembina. And we get an array of streets that match Pembina. Okay, awesome. Great spot to come in here. Add dots. Queries the transits API with value user type. And you know what? If I'm going to commit, might as well push. This is not a branch, right? It's not the master branch. That branch is not tracked, so I can't push it. I can push it, but I can't just push it like that. I have to do this to push the entire branch up. I don't want to do that. Okay, we'll just push it once we merge it. So next thing is we're going to want to take these and we're going to want to output them over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop on over to my index.html and I'm going to grab a sample of what this looks like. I'm also going to just kind of this top piece here because I need that. And I'm going to paste it over here because I like to have this in my JavaScript code as reference so I don't have to go back and forth. Okay, so I'm going to need this class streets. So we're going to say const streets equals document.query selector. And we're going to say streets. Okay, so we got the streets element. Okay. We're also going to need this piece to like build this out. And we're going to be building it out with this piece of data that we got back, right? This piece of data has all these, it's essentially going to be data.streets. Okay, this big thing is the piece of data. It's a big object. And inside that object, it has a property called streets, which is an array of street objects. So we're going to actually make another function here called insert streets. And well, let's just call it insert streets. It could be insert streets into DOM or something like that. And we're going to give it data.streets. Okay, because that's essentially what it is, data.streets. And we could do it right here in line, but it's just nice to break these things up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to do function insert. So I get streets, now I insert streets. And we're receiving an array of streets, right? And insert streets is going to go into the streets element, right? That's where all these streets are going to go. And they're going to look like this. They're going to look like that. So we're essentially going to be going through, we're going to be going through streets.forEach. And each one is a single street, okay, because streets is an array of streets. And we're going to be inserting into this element. And again, I think I'm going to continue something that I was working on in the past, and that is I'm just going to set constant for variable for this. We're going to start it off at empty. And all we're going to do is we're going to say streets HTML plus equals. Okay, and again, the reason for this is that this is actually a lot faster for the computer, not for me, okay, for the computer, than it is inserting multiple things into the DOM 100 times or 10 times, okay? And I need to, this A for HREF is fine. I need to put in the key and I need to put in the name of the streets. So let's take a look here. So we have the name, dot name. So we'll use street dot name. And then we also have the key here. Oh, okay. So put in the key, street dot key. And then once we're done going over that for loop and building up this piece of HTML, we'll just insert it. So we'll do a streets element dot insert. Actually, sorry, dot text content. Right, we don't need to do an insert because insert's really good when we want to target a very specific spot inside the HTML, or we want to build something up without deleting everything else. But we're starting with something that's empty, and we're inserting a giant piece, and we're not going to be inserting anything else on top of that after. So we can just say, not text content, sorry, inner HTML equals streets HTML. Okay, same idea as text content. It just instead it will properly interpret HTML. Text content would insert this as plain text, and it wouldn't look like a link. Instead, it would say like a tag. Okay. So we're going to insert these streets now, which means we don't need these streets in here anymore. We can take these out. Okay. And what else do we need to do here? That's good. So we can save this, come back over here, refresh. Pemina. P-E-M-B-I-N-A. There we go. And super fast, we got all of our Pemina highways right in there. Now, these don't do anything. Okay. That's our next piece. We need to make them clickable. The other thing that we need to do is we need to do something here. Okay. So if it's empty, so here we're not checking if it's empty. We're just assuming there's values in it, right? So we'll probably need to do that as well. For now, though, I think that the next thing I'm going to tackle is the click. Okay, just make sure they are. Actually, no. Let's finish this up and let's call that a get streets. Everything's out there. Everything's good, and then we'll cut that off. We'll merge this branch and we'll head to the next branch. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. So if streets dot length 0 or does not equal 0, doesn't matter, right? If it doesn't equal 0, actually, I'm going to keep this declaration outside here, streets HTML, and I'm going to move this just around the part that goes over streets. So as long as streets.length isn't 0, we're going to build up this HTML. Okay. Otherwise, streets HTML equals no results. So I'm leveraging the fact that this is already declared and this is already going to be inserted. And I'm just going to input it like that. Is it a div? I don't know if it's a div or something. Next. Oh, there it is. Yeah, div, no results. Okay. So we'll go div class equals no dash results. And close that. And takes that side to make it easier. All right. So now if we type in something that is no good, refresh. Okay. So there we have it. We're hitting our Streets API. Let's call that piece done. Okay. So we will get add dot commit streets are added to the DOM after being retrieved So now we're going to merge this into master. So I'm going to git checkout master. Get quick git status. We'll see that our branch is up to date, but like we haven't been doing any work on master. Our master branch kind of took a pause. We went over to our get streets branch. We did all our work on get streets branch. So master is simply behind by several commits. Okay. So what we're going to do is now that we're in master, we can merge the branch in. So git merge get streets. And it will be the sample merge, okay, with the multiple branches, or with the singular branch. I just saved and closed, so I just went like that. This made this insertion here, merge made by recursive strategy, as I asked you to do, okay. And now I can just do a git push. And it didn't save my stuff. That's unfortunate. I'll only be pushing a couple times anyways. Okay, so git status, we're all up to date. Now we can git branch -d. We can delete that branch, and that was the get streets branch. Okay, and now we're going to work on our next feature branch, which is git branch. Let's say get routes. We're going to get the routes, right? Is that the next piece? Yeah, and then the last piece is the stop schedules. Okay, so git checkout, get routes. Cool. And we'll do all our work on here for get routes. Okay, so the other thing that we need to do here, as we mentioned, is we need to insert, our event listener on our streets element, right? We need to listen to clicks on these things here, on these streets, right? We need to listen for clicks on these streets. So these are links inside of that streets element. So we're going to need to put, I would like all the time, we should be delegating that. We don't want to put an individual event listener on each one of these A tags, okay? So instead we're doing, and I'll put it up here by my other event listener, streets element dot on click and E. So we're listening for on clicks to it, and E is the event. E dot target will be what we clicked on, and we care about it when e.target.no name equals A, when it's a link, when it's an A tag. If it's an A tag, then we're going to do something. Otherwise, we're not going to do anything. Okay, let's just test that out. So we should be seeing hi over here, and everywhere else, when I click on other things in here, in between links, oh, beautiful. Okay. Now, what are we going to do here? Well, we're going to go get all the stops at that, on that road, on that street. I said routes, what I meant stops. Go get all the stops in that street. And then we'll stop there, okay? So we'll go get all the stops on that street. So let's write a function, get stops. Okay, get stops, and we're gonna need a street ID or a street key, right? To go get the stops, because that's what, to get the stops, if you go and you look at the API here, okay, you need examples. You want the stop key, the street, the street key right here. Okay, so this guy right here. So we'll go take a look at what that looks like. Okay, and you can just pop that open in a new window. And it looks something like that. Okay, so we're providing it with the street key. And this will give us all the stops on that street. Excuse me. We only need to do this one time, right? One call, because it's just one street that we need to go get. I don't think we need to do anything else on here. No, that looks good. Okay, so we're gonna go fetch this. And here we'll pop in this API key. And here we'll pop in the street key. Okay. Now, obviously, this doesn't work yet because I'm not calling it. So we need to call it. Okay. And that's going to be a get stops. And to get the key, remember we stored the key inside the A tag in the data attribute here, the street key. So we need to go fetch that out. So that is e.target, because we already know that e.target is the A tag. Okay, so we're confident in what we're dealing with here. Data set, street key. Remember, JavaScript is very kind and it takes out those hyphens and it creates camel case out of it. So we can just go get that street key and we'll get that back. We'll pop that over into get stops, and get stops will perform our fetch. And we got our then and our then response JSON. Pass that down to the next one, which would be data or JSON or whatever you want to call it. Okay, and we'll just console log that data. Let's take a look at this. And there we go. We have a giant array of stops, or a giant object with a giant array of stops. There we go. There's all the stops. Okay. All right. So at this point in time, good time to commit. Get that dot dash m gets all stops for a street that the user clicks on. Cool. All right, now what are we going to do with this? This is probably a good spot for this. So this is where we would actually go to the next stage and get all the stop schedules and insert them, right? So what you can do here is you can keep working in here, okay, and you can make this extra long. But what I'm going to do this. Over here, I'm going to attach a then onto here. And just to clean this up a little bit, get stops is currently just a function, but I am going to return this data here. And I'm going to return this fetch. Okay, so returning, okay, remember, we're often returning from inside thens, okay? So this return will return this fetch as a promise. And then return here will return that promise outside over into here, get stops. This is just to clean it up a little bit. Okay, so essentially what's happening here is get stops is now a promise. So I can attach it then onto it. And inside here, I have my data, that data that I passed in, that I will use to print stops. Okay. Or sorry, get schedules. That's really the next thing. Get schedules. So we get stops, then we get schedules. And actually it looks a little bit better like this. Oh, actually, yeah, gotta do it like this. So I saw some, so I'm gonna pause here because I see this. I saw this for 4 times on this. So some people took this approach and then they said, oh, okay, well, this looks better. Let's do this. Right? You cannot, you can, but you have to understand, you cannot put parentheses plus a argument or parentheses on a method, on a function when it's a callback. Okay, this is very different than this. Okay, this invokes that function immediately, and this is something we've talked about since the we've been talking about this for a couple months now. Okay, remember, putting parentheses on a function invokes the function immediately as the JavaScript is getting read from top to bottom. It does not invoke the function or pass this data parameter or argument when you want it to at that time. It does it immediately. It does it. So if I had this, data is null. Data is undefined because data has never been defined prior. Okay, what you really want to do is you really want to do this, right? You want to pass a function, then go execute this function. But the problem with that is you're not able to pass a parameter because as soon as you put those parentheses on to insert a parameter, it gets invoked. And so to get around that, you need to insert it into a, insert it into an anonymous inline function. Okay, that's very common. And that was a problem for a lot of people this time. Excuse me. So now we can do the function. And we're pulling in this data. And let's just make sure that everything works. So we'll console log this data here.
You have a typo in schedules, John. On the bottom, the last one, you're missing the U.
Thanks. Just do this. Cool. All right. So let's see if this is working here. So we go Pamina. And what it should print out, again, is the same thing as it printed out before, except coming from line 50. Am I hitting this at the right time with the data that I want? Is everything connected correctly? And the answer is no. Oh, yeah, it took a bit. Okay, there we go. Okay, it's asynchronous, so it takes time sometimes. So there we go. So we're hitting line 50, exactly the way we want it. Okay, so again, the reason why I'm returning this from here up to here. So remember, I am inside a function here. I'm inside this function. So to get out of this little gray area, I need to return. And that will end up returning this whole thing as a promise. That comes back here. So this ends up being a promise. Okay. And then that in turn gets brought up here. This becomes a promise because I returned that to get stops. And then I'm attaching this then onto it, which is just then calling this. I could have done it here. I could have done this. This is the same thing. This is exactly the same thing. Okay. This is, if I didn't do this, and that means I can take this off. This is exactly the same thing. Okay, go through here, get to this point, and get schedules. The reason why I don't do this is because this ties get stops to get schedules. I cannot, in an architectural standpoint, now they are like this. The only way I get schedules is if I get stops. I cannot separate them. In this other set, the way I did it, I can get stops and choose not to get schedules. Maybe I want to do something different with stops, right? So this is a better way to program it the way I had it before. It's a little bit more convoluted, I guess you can argue, but I can now get stops and do anything I want with these stops. I'm not tied to get stops and then get schedules every time. So this separates that connection, okay, which is good. You want as many pieces separate as possible. And all you do is you pass data down instead of really linking these pieces tightly together, okay? But I think maybe for this, we'll just go with the example that better, the easier to understand the example here. So we'll get schedules. And this does the same thing. As you will see right here. We're gonna get schedules. Okay, good spot to commit and branch. So actually we're not at street. So we have all the street data. And we'll get checkout master. Merge. Get routes. Pop up, Control S, Control W, and it's got this little push arrow here, okay, which is telling me I have stuff to push. So let's try pushing again. It'll prompt me for my name. So that clearly that didn't work from before. And there we go. Okay, so just to give you a sense of what's going on, all my stuff is up here. I have 8 commits already. Okay, all my commits are timestamped, right? You can see my timestamps of my commits. You can see my branches because you see merge branch get streets, merge branch get routes. So this is what I was expecting. Okay. As I mentioned, I went over this before, but okay, so we're going back here. And the last piece is we're going to get these stops, okay? So we need to get the schedules for each stop. Now, let's get these schedules. So we have our data. Oh, yeah, I didn't schedules. Schedules. Now, data is data. We want to, oh, I need to create another branch here. We're back on master, git branch, get schedules. Oh, okay. So we have our schedules. Our schedules are coming from stops. So it's data.stops. And these are going to be stops. Okay. So pretty much what we're going to be doing is we're going to be iterating over each of these schedules and getting the schedule data, right, for each stop. So we're going to say stops dot for each, and it's a singular stop, and we're going to say fetch some stuff, okay? And now we have to go to that stop and go get it. So we'll pop back here, go back to the API, and we need these stop schedules one. Examples. So we have the stop, we have the ID, and we have the schedule. We don't need to specify the start time. If you read the API, it tells you it will give you the next 2 hours unless you specify a start and end time. You can specify an end time. Max results per route 2, I think we really only care about 1. So that will probably reduce the time in which it takes. So really all we need is this one. This is pretty much all we need. And then
What about usage long?
usage long. Yeah, you could, yeah, sure.
You asked us for long.
I asked you to do that? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I asked for that, then sure. And then we just grab this, pop that in there. And API key right here. API key. Max results per route. Let's do 1. Usage long. Good. And the other piece we need is that stop key. And that will come from stop dot. Let's find out. Stop dot key. Stop dot key. Stop dot key. Okay. And then we're going to go and we're going to do a then response. And data. Okay. So let's try this out. See if that works. Console.log. And I'm just using data over and over again. A lot of these times, these things are just containers of data. So it's not a stop in real life. Like, I don't like calling this like, hey, we're getting back stops, because then it becomes stops dot stops. And I don't like that. So I end up using data a lot. Some people use JSON a lot. But you'll see this, obviously the pattern is repeating. Okay, so let's try this out. So let's pick a smaller one. Let's pick Hello. And we'll click on that. And so what we should be getting is several objects, right? We're calling several stops on Hello. So we're going to get back the results of several fetches. Okay. And there we go. No. Did I not refresh? I didn't refresh. There we go. 4 stops. Now, promise.all. Let's talk about this right now. Promise.all. Let's do this again. Okay. But let's try a bigger one. Something a little bit bigger, but not super big. What's a more... Osborne might be really big. I'm going to try a street that I used to live on, or just off of Attorney. What? Okay.
I think,
AY.
yeah, Betourne with an AY.
Betournay. Oh yeah, Betournay Street. Okay, so there we go. So promise.all. So you see these are coming in pretty quick, I'll admit. But promise.all guarantees, 100% guarantees that these all come in with results at the same time. And that's extremely useful when we're drawing things on a page. What we don't want is half the buses or 5 of the buses to show up, and then half a second later, 5 more buses then show up, and then another second later, 3 more buses show up. And that's what you would get if you don't use promise.all. Promise.all slows the whole process down to the speed of the slowest one of these fetches, okay? Because we're doing this 5 times and they all take a different amount of time, okay? So we're saying with promise.all, wait until the last one is finished and then console log the data, and then print out the stuff and then do whatever you need to do. If you just use fetch, you cannot get that same sort of response. Okay, so what you do is instead of performing your stuff over here, okay, like instead of doing your thing here, okay, and you can promise.all you can return pretty much anywhere here. You kind of want to return the data. Okay. Yeah. And that will be, let's return stop schedule. Okay, this returns a promise. Okay, this returns a promise. So fetch, in turn, is also going to return a promise. So how promise.all works is we need to have an array of these things. So we essentially get an array of promises. Now these are bad variable names, but I'm fine with that. Empty array. Okay, because we want to put these inside of an array. And we want to say array of promises dot push. And we're going to push this whole thing onto that array of promises. Okay, so this is going to be promise, 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 right? All these fetches, they're all going into this array. And this whole thing will only start this whole thing will only work once all of them have been completed. So promise.all, then, and then I think we get all of our, so this is going to be all of our data as an array. So so all these stop schedules, so inside here, it's going to be an array of stop schedules. That's what it's going to be, an array of arrays. We'll take a look at that, okay? I'll show you. So let's call this more data, okay? And then let's just say data console. Okay, so array of promises. It's essentially an array of all of these put together, all of these fetches put together. Okay, so let's take a look at that.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
You want to empty your array?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's not valid. Thanks. Okay. Keep that open just in case. Fresh. The tour. Okay, so here is our results, and they all came at the same time at the speed of the slowest fetch. All of our stop schedules with our route schedules. Okay. So this is everything. All of it's inside here. Okay. We might actually not want the stop schedule. We might want the entire stop. Let's take a look to see what that looks like. I think I might need more information. E-E-T-O-U-N-E-R-A-Y. Oh, so I don't really get any additional information. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna go with stop schedule. Okay, so this is why promise.all. This is how promise.all, right? It's taking all these fetches, ensuring that they are promises. And to ensure that they're promises, we need to return from and we're used to that, just like we're doing here. This is our return. This is essentially doing this. Not essentially, it is doing this. That is what's happening. Okay, the only way we're allowed to chain another then on is because the previous one returned. By returning, it creates a promise. By returning, this creates a promise. But there's no other then attached onto it, so it goes back over here, and this whole thing that I have highlighted is now a promise. Okay, again, this all goes back to understanding how promises work. So which means if this whole thing became a promise, that means I'm pushing a promise onto this array of promises. And this will only start, this piece will only start working when all of these promises are finished resolving, when they finally all get to this point and return. Okay. Let's save this. So, gets route schedules each stop. Okay, great. So that works for all my stops. Now, I think the next thing I want to do is insert schedules. Okay, and we're just going to pass it. So for each piece of data, we're going to insert, sorry, goes like this, data top for each, and this is going to be a singular stop, okay? Each of these represents, and it's not data, it's actually a stop. It's a singular stop schedule, that's what it is. So let's call it what it is. And this is not an array of promises, this is an array. So this is stop schedules, essentially. These are promises that come back in our stop schedules. And I'm changing the names just so they're a little bit more obvious. Okay, stop schedule, stop. Each one of these is this is all the stop schedules. Stop schedules for each. Okay, and for each of these, it's a stop schedule. And we're going to insert schedules, stop schedules. We don't have this function yet, so we're going to have to go write it. And now we're going to head on over here and grab our TRs. And we're going to copy and paste that. Actually, we're going to grab this whole thing, bring that back to our JavaScript, and we'll just paste it here, comment it out. Actually, we're probably going to want this. So we're going to build up, let's build up our HTML in the same way. So let's call it tbody content equals, so we'll say let tbody content is empty, okay? And then we're going to be going through stop schedules. Ooh, this will work. Won't be able to do it like this, unfortunately. Stop schedules, so we're gonna actually have to insert insert adjacent HTML. Because I'm breaking this up into multiple iterations, so I'll be calling this method multiple times. If I destroy what was in the body every time, then I would only get a few results. So I want to append it, right? I want to build it up. I don't want to have a giant chunk that I insert it, because I'm not just calling this once, I'm calling this many times, once for each stop schedule. So stop schedules for each, right? Because there are, sorry, it's not stop schedules for each, it's stop schedules, route schedules, right? Stop schedule, route schedules for each. And each, I only have one bus. Okay.
John,
Yes.
can you go back to your browser console? And just while you're there, you want to hover over it? Because I just realized this. You can just right click it and copy.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Wow, didn't realize that.
That
So
was
get
like
that.
my mind blowing thing from
Wow, cool. You learn something new every day. So I want stop schedules for each. So that kind of helps. It doesn't really help because now I have to think of this and fix it. I want stop schedules dot route schedules. It's a dash. Stop schedules route schedules for each, because there's multiple, and that is we're going to call that a route. Okay. And what do we do with these routes? Inside each route, there are many of them. So we're going to say route dot for each, and that is essentially a singular bus. That's a route schedule. Routes for each. So we get one of these, and then each one of these. What would you call this? I guess it's a
Schedule.
What?
Schedule.
A schedule.
Stops. Schedule stops.
Yeah, I want scheduled stops next. I'm just trying to think of the name because I feel like I'm too high up. This is technically a route schedule. Okay, let's call it what it is. Right. And then we end up with this one right here, scheduled stops right here. So we should be just printing out the first of each route schedule. Okay, so let's just print that out. So let's just console.log that to make sure that that's what we're getting. And then we'll just be able to insert, did I delete my, oh, I did. So again. And so refresh, but word name. Reference error, stop schedules not defined. Line 64.
You need another 0 before schedule
Your
to stops.
parameter missing an S. You're missing an S in the parameter.
There we go. Or I'm doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the two. Yeah. Route schedules of undefined. Ooh,
You need a
got it.
0 in front of a schedule to stops on line 66. Or, yeah, 64, sorry.
Do I?
You shouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna console. I don't trust that. I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing here. Stop schedules. Not that I don't trust what you're saying. I just I want to make sure I'm getting everything that I want to be getting. Fraternity Street. Oh, this whole thing is undefined. Okay. That's interesting.
Oh,
For each in line 59.
yeah. You probably want to console log stop schedules first to see
Yeah,
what's that.
exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, okay, I thought I did already. Okay, let's console log stop schedule. Interesting. I'm like looking for misspellings. Schedule, the more I look at the word schedule, the more I feel like it's misspelled. But let's just try Henlo. Undefined, undefined. What?
Yeah, the stop schedule is undefined. The schedules.
Stop schedules.
Yeah, that there's something to do with that, I think.
I bet you this is pushing in the wrong thing. I think this is stop schedules. And I think that's where I'm hitting the problem. Stop dash schedule. So data. Oh, I'm not returning it. Ah, stupid. There we go. There we go. Okay. Try again. Henlo. Great. Great. Route schedule.for each is not a function. That means, okay, so at least we have some stuff going on here. Okay, and we're back to where we were before. Console log. And that's just programming. Okay, you should really be using your debugger. I am addicted to console logs. I have been for years. But really you should be using your debugger for this. That way you don't have to change your JavaScript, come back. So route schedules, that's what I thought. Route schedules. Okay, yeah, no. Stop schedules. Route schedules. Dot for each is a route schedule. So I get one of these, which is 2. Okay, so that's good. So it's this one here. And then in there, I have scheduled stops. Let's try that. There we go. Route schedule, and each route schedule, we will grab, yeah, we will be iterating over it, as I said. Route schedules. Oh, what? I've confused myself. Okay, so I just printed out, oh, I'm printing out too many things. That's why. We're almost done, believe it or not. One second. This is, as you know, digging through nested objects and arrays is probably the hardest part of this thing, right? Especially when the name is constantly repeating route schedule, stop schedule, right? It's just all the same stuff. It starts to really get to you.
That right click thing is really helpful, though.
What's that?
That right click thing is really helpful.
Oh, you find? The thing is, I need to break it down, and it's giving me everything all at once, right? Okay, so let's do this. Hello. Route schedule for each line 65. Okay, fine. What is route schedule? Okay, so it's a singular route with scheduled stops. So it's just this. That's pretty much what it is. There we go. Okay. And then we get our individual bus and our times. Okay, so now we can actually use this to print this out. So we have our route and our scheduled stuff. Okay, so now we'll just pop back here, grab this TR, and we'll print this stuff out. Okay. So we're going to be doing, we're going to need this T body tag. Okay, so we'll probably just pop to the top. Where am I here? There we go. Pop to the top here. Const T body equals top body, and we'll come down here. And we'll say tbody.insert adjacent HTML. And we'll say after begin, comma, these things. Put this whole TR in there. Fix up the indentation a little bit. Oh, okay. The indentation a little bit, and then start printing this stuff out. So there was a couple of things that I did that I didn't really care for initially, and that was getting the some of the information I printed out I didn't like very much. I need to use some of the stuff at the scheduled stop, right? I need to use the time, obviously. I need to use the route number, and I also need to use. So I was going to use the departure time, okay? I use the arrival time, and apparently that doesn't exist all the time, and that caused problems, and I didn't know that until you guys pointed it out. So that was the problem. So I need the bus. Is the bus key? No. The key for the, and then, so I'm gonna just get the actually arrival time from this thing.
I'm getting PTSD watching you dig through this.
I know. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to console log route here. I know I need the time. This is where I get the time from, right? So I'm gonna just make that right now. I'm gonna say const, I could do this inside of for each, no problem, no big deal, right? Const departure time equals new date, and we're going to stick this in there. Okay. And then we're just going to put departure time right here. Can anyone tell me off the top of their head the to locale string for this one? So I don't have to dig through the rest of my stuff.
You can use two options. I use
Okay.
that to locale time string.
Yeah. Can you tell me what the options are?
Hour 2 digits, minute 2 digit.
Oh yeah. So it's hours to, is it a string?
Yeah, it's a string. 2
Two.
dash digit.
And then it's minutes.
It's singular. It's hour and a minute. Not
Okay.
minutes.
In case you didn't know, this is a thing. To locale time string. It allows you to format times.
You probably also need a empty array before the option.
Yeah. Before this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember. Yeah, I remember that. Yes.
Bing shared the link in the Discord. You may check it out. And
Okay.
But do you have to put in time zone or language or whatever as the first parameter?
You don't have to. You don't have to.
Okay. I thought you did.
No, you don't have to. If you don't, it defaults to, I think, English US.
Okay.
Yeah, so this will give us our departure time. Okay. Okay. So this will give us a good start here. Okay. And this will show up at the bottom unless we delete all these things. So we're just going to get rid of all these TRs here. Delete that. And come over here. Hello. And they'll all say the same thing, but the time is what we care about for now. Invalid dates. Oh, shoot.
It's dot times dot departure. And then I use estimated.
Okay. There we go. Good. Okay. A lot of the other stuff we're actually going to be getting from route. So I'm just going to pop that in here. Route. And we'll say hello. Get that. Boom. Okay, so we get the route. So we get the badge. The badge label is the bus, right? Yeah. Yeah, the badge label is the bus. 64274. Yeah. So so we can also use the key. Key works too, or number works too. Okay, so we're looking at, so for this, it's route.number. And the name is actually pretty good too. It would be, but we don't want that on the stop name. So that's actually going to come from the stop schedules. Okay, we also have access to that too. Okay, so we have access to several things here that we're going to need to, that you probably want to leverage. So the stop itself has information. So it stop schedules. Zero. Stop, oh no, sorry, stop schedules. Dot, stop, dot, name. That's a better one. That's a better one than what I used. It also has the cross street here. Cross street dot name. And the direction, stop dot direction. should do it.
It should be stop dot direction, I think.
Oh yeah, thanks. And there we go. So this is a much nicer, bus number, route. What was it? Route. See, that's why. Route. That's stupid. Route. Number. And so you can immediately tell as soon as I do that my naming is poor. Oh, and I need to remove everything that's in T-body first. So that should happen probably before I insert all these schedules, or like even right here, right? So it can't happen in here because that will delete everything every time. So we can do it just here, T-body equals empty. There's a lot of places you could do it. This is not a great place, in all honesty. The closer you can do it to where you're building it, which is here, would probably be better. I'd have to break this up into multiple lines, which is probably the better way to do it anyways. So you want to go T-body dot text content equals empty string, just to empty it out. Okay.
Inner HTML.
Yeah, that works too. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Both of them delete things, right? Both of them delete everything inside. So it doesn't matter. What matters, the difference between text content and inner HTML is really when you're setting it, not when you're deleting it. And this should now work. No, shoot, not in here. Right here. And then you would just have to fix this. I'm not going to fix that. I'm done. That was like a sprint. I did that in like an hour and a quarter. It's not bad. Okay.
I have a question, John.
Yeah.
Do you want to switch back to your VS Code? So since we're doing promise.all for all the stop schedules, does that make sense that after you did is insert a couple times of every single stops instead of like building a huge one HTML string and insert one time?
Sorry, say that again.
So since we're
you're saying pass the entire stop schedule into here instead of iterating over it here.
Yeah, kind of, because we do promise all for all the schedules, but then we insert them one by one.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine because the insert is synchronous. This is synchronous. So the whole thing, like, right? That's like saying should like slow down it's so fast because we're not waiting for anything anymore. We already have everything. It's not synchronous, but it goes this, then that, then that, then that, then that, then that, right? But we already have all the data. We've already retrieved it. Inserting into the DOM is lightning speed, right? So it's more of those fetches that we're waiting for. So once all those fetches are done, inserting that data, it doesn't matter whether or not we pass in a lump of data or individual pieces of data every time. We have all the data already. So the speed is at that point is irrelevant because it's going to be lightning, like super fast anyways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah. But you kind of triggered something in my head. Sorry, go ahead.
Can we return promise all?
Yeah, promise all returns a promise as well. Yeah, you can return from here too. Yeah. Because that's how you can chain a then onto it, right? The only way you can chain a then onto it is if you returned. So this is actually returning a promise for you. But yeah, you can return from here as well, and then chain more thens onto it as well. Yep, for sure.
One more question.
Mhm.
For the push part, in line 52, can we push response.json? Because response.json also promise.
Yeah, response.json is, so you can push this instead of this. You'll just, all that's doing is moving this down into here. So you're just moving things around. Response.json is really the key here, because that's when we know that we sent something out and we finally got it back, right? It finally arrived back. From then on, it's just everything's super fast. Parsing that JSON is fast. It doesn't matter where you return, really, as long as it either has to be here or after. Yeah, but that's fine too.
I actually did the same thing as what Bing just said. And
Yeah.
I did it because if we do it with the data, not the JSON part, not the response, then we
Mhm.
don't have to do for each loop, just fetch and then get JSON, and at the data it's already like broken down
It
when you're iterating.
wouldn't be. You're just moving your for each somewhere else.
Am I?
Like because I can do the same thing here too. I don't need to go through a for each loop here. I can pass my entire stop schedule here, and then I'm just moving that for each loop into my insert schedule.
Over there. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so you're
right.
like, you
you're
have
right.
to do it. It's just a matter of where you do it. Yeah. Actually, I like that better, because then I can say this text content and stop schedule, and then I just say stop schedules. This makes more sense. And then stop schedules, stop for each. But I didn't do that, and that's just how it is.
I actually have 2 questions.
Okay.
I noticed you didn't use throw or catch. Is that not
No.
necessary?
It's not necessary. It's good if you do. I'm rushing, right?
Okay.
I'm cutting out all unnecessary stuff just for demonstration purposes. I would highly recommend that you do it, because in the real world, it is something that you're expected to do, because you're going to need to be able to, what happens when you're not able to reach Winnipeg Transit, because Winnipeg Transit goes down. And it's probably going to be something simple, like you're going to put an error message on the screen for the user saying, sorry, we're not able to figure out your bus stop at this time. Please try again later, right? As opposed to just not showing anything and the user's like, did I push the button? I thought this usually works. Don't you hate that when you go to a website and you push a button and you're like, what's going on? And you get no feedback? So generally, yes, and you're usually going to just provide the user with feedback. But that's,
And my second question, so I thought class was asynchronous. Like if I put a bunch of methods in a class?
Nope.
No?
No. No, they're synchronous. Yeah, tying this with class, like using there's no promise.all and classes are not at all related. Classes and asynchronous programming are not at all related, right? They are completely separate. The idea of a class is a structure. It's like saying arrays are asynchronous or synchronous. They're totally separate.
So the class is just to define the scope. Like it just creates like.
It creates scope. It creates objects. It helps create organization and design in your program. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
I also got 2 questions.
Okay.
So the first one is on the function insert street. You put a street's HTML variable.
Yep.
And said this would make it faster, or was it easier?
It's faster. It's not easier. It's faster. Are you wondering why?
I do have a guess. So if you fetch over there and do not
it has to do with the speed of inserting into the DOM. While I say inserting to the DOM is lightning fast, inserting into the DOM 10 times is slower than inserting. So inserting 10 lines
Mhm.
individually 10 times into the DOM, insert into the DOM, insert into the DOM, insert into the DOM. Doing that 10
Right.
times is slower
Lower.
than inserting once, but a block of 10
Just
lines.
adding. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because of what's called a repaint. The browser needs to update and repaint the DOM, pieces of the DOM.
Every
with the-
time they call.
every time that we're saying insert adjacent, insert adjacent, insert adjacent.
Mm.
So we'd rather it repaint one time with 10 pieces with a big block than repaint 10 times with small blocks every
Right.
time.
Once.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we're going to
Okay.
build it up and then we're going to jam it all in at once. And unfortunately, I could do that over here if, again, I were to move this down, move my 4E down into here. Actually, that would be a way better thing. Then I could build up this big TR and insert that all at once. That's a much better approach now that I think about it. But it's a fun, a 3-minute refactor and
Okay.
lazy.
And and the second one is the location of API in the URL. It's function get stops. It's before the streets query. Is that okay? I thought API key comes always at the end, or am I thinking wrong?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Oh.
No. The way that these are arranged is irrelevant.
Okay, I thought that has to be at the end, and I okay.
No, it's just going to look to see if they're there. It doesn't care what order they're in. I can swap these around and everything works. Everything will keep
Okay,
working.
thanks.
Yep.
I'm done.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so obviously my last thing here is another git add dot git commit dash m yeah, dash m I guess you could say completed. That's not a very good commit message. By the way, you're never completed. You're never done. Projects never stop. They always continue because people are always going to be adding new features, fixing bugs, deleting things, or finally it just dies. And you're not done. The project's dead because I used to build projects for like movies or television. So when the TV show is done and it's off the air, well, the project is just dead, deleted. Okay. Oops. So we're gonna say that completed. Okay. Git checkout master, git merge, get schedules, and do this. Save, close, and git push, our last git push. And then I'm going to delete this repository. So now would be a great time for a little break. Okay, I don't think we're going to do our 30 minutes of gulp. I just don't have time. So we're going to come back and we're going to move on to our next thing. We're going to look at maps. I decided against weather. We're going to do maps. I finished this off late last night and I was excited. So we're going to spend some time doing maps. Big project, a big exercise. It's not a one-day thing. It's not a 2-day thing. I think this is going to go until Tuesday. Okay. Because we need something to send. What's today? Wednesday? Yeah, we'll see. We'll play it by ear. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so let's take a break. Come back at 22, so 10:40, okay? And we'll see you in 15 minutes. I'll post this solution, by the way. Okay. Is called Mapbox. I'll share my screen. Okay, it's called Mapbox. There are a variety of map APIs, okay? So Mapbox, so you'll head on over to Mapbox with your Googles. Okay. head on over to Mapbox with your Googles and sign up for a free API key. Start mapping for free. Okay. Now it's more than just an API, and all of these map products are more than just APIs. They are also libraries. Okay, so there's two sides to maps. One is displaying the map, and two, the other thing that these map, I guess, products, software as a service, are used for is like querying information about geography, right? Distances, longitude, latitude, right? We can, one, display a map and tell it what to put on the map, and we can do all that stuff, but we can also ask it questions like, is there any restaurants close by called this? And give me the longitude, latitude. All of these map products kind of do the same thing. So really the big ones are Mapbox, and does anyone know the biggest map product? Have you heard of a little company called Google? Okay, so Google Maps, this is the biggest one. Normally in the past, we would use this one. However, they made it that you now have to pay for it. It's very minimal, but I can't expect students to come and put their credit card number in and pay $10 a month to do a couple projects, right? That's just not reasonable. But they are the biggest ones. They have the most data. They have the most endpoints. They have the most information, but we can't use that. Mapbox, however, is free. So we'll be using that one. It's pretty good. And I will walk you through it. Okay. That's what we're going to do over the next 45 minutes. I'm going to walk you through some stuff over there. Okay. So, but before that, the first thing we're going to do, so our goal today, so actually maybe I'll show you tonight's exercise, not just tonight's exercise, the next exercise. I'll show it to you. I'll show you what I want you to build. And then we're going to spend 45 minutes learning and talking about the different phases of this and how we should approach building it. So I've kind of taken this and I've separated it into several phases to help you just try to break it down for you a little bit before you actually try to tackle it, because it makes it a little bit easier as opposed to just having this one big problem, right? And I think this one's interesting. Okay, so this is so I've opened class 12. So we're on class 12 here. Okay, so we're going to look at Mapbox. And you're going to need a free account at Mapbox. There's a little link there. Okay, and we're going to be building a very small, like maps, like Google Maps style application. Pretty straightforward. Okay, and here's a demo of it. Okay, so it prompts. The first thing it does actually before this that you missed is it will prompt me here, and actually I can fix that. Clear these settings for future visits. Okay, so let me refresh this page. This is the first thing it does, is it prompts me for my location. So we're going to learn how to do that today. Okay, that's the first thing we're going to do. Then the next thing we're going to do, this is phase one. The first phase of this is prompt the user, draw a map, and pin a location on the map. That's it. That's phase one. That's what we're going after today. Okay. Phase two is connecting to their API. So this part on the right-hand side, this is their library. Okay, we just like Font Awesome, how we need to include a couple lines of code in our HTML to use Font Awesome. To display a map, we need to include a couple lines of code. This thing on the right has nothing to do with fetch at all. Okay, this thing on the left though, where I type in the word of a the word of a restaurant or like a style of something, like anything, point of interest, okay? This thing on the left, this is API. This is fetch. Both of them are Mapbox. Okay, both of them are Mapbox. One of them is like a library. The other side is an API. Okay, so this is phase 2. Phase 2, we're going to be interacting with their API. We're going to be retrieving data. Phase 3, we're going to merge the two. So phase 3, we're going to be able to click on one of these results and move them out. Okay. Has anyone been to Kaja Sushi? No? So this is what we're building. Does this look good? Is this exciting? Yeah. It's something. Okay, it's something. So this will give you some experience working with maps. Okay. So to begin, we need to be able to manage this piece. We're going to start here. We're going to start with geolocation. So in this lesson, I have already included all sorts of links. So sorry, in this, oh, it didn't, okay. Sorry, just give me 1 sec. It's going to fix these things. I think it's this. That should, yeah. Okay. So in this exercise, I've already included a bunch of links to all these different things that you'll need to look at and read at, like the documentation for these. I'll take you through it one time, but you'll probably need to go back and refer to the documentation a few times or back to the video, okay? But it's actually not that difficult. But gluing all these little pieces together, again, as you've experienced, is what can be a little bit tricky. So the first thing we're going to start with is we're going to start with the geolocation API. So the geolocation API is an API provided by the browser. So we don't have to perform a fetch, okay? It is asynchronous though, okay? So it takes, and the reason, and I'll show you how this asynchronous piece works. But we are essentially prompting the browser to ask for the user's position. Can we please find out where you are right now? Because we want to draw a map and put your location on it. Or we want to pick the store closest to you. Or we want to steal your information, right? There's a variety of reasons why we might want to ask for that. But we can't just ask for it and get it. We ask for it, and the user is prompted, and then they can say yes or no. If they say no, well, we're kind of screwed. We need to come up with a backup plan, okay? But it's actually, doing this is actually very simple. Okay, so I'll show you how you can do this. So let us hop on over. You know what? I already have my stuff open from earlier, my bus thing, my bus app. So do I still have that open? Let's go and use that. Okay, so I'm going to code dot, and we're going to add a little check at the beginning to grab that information. Okay, so we'll just put it in right at the top here so we can see how this works. Okay, and there's a beautiful little sample right on the geolocation page. So if you take a couple minutes to look at this geolocation, we really have two options. We have the option to get the user's current position, where they are right now, but we also have the option to watch their position. So watch their position means track their position as their position changes. What do you think that might be good for?
Navigation app?
Navigation, running app, cycling app, walking, maybe some sort of exercise app, some sort of traffic thing. Yeah. So we have the option to either just get it right now, just a one-time thing, which would be great for like, where are you right now? Drawing something on the map and just putting the pin. Or we could do the watch position one, okay, where we're constantly getting that feedback of information, okay? But we're just going to look at the get current position, okay? So we're going to click on that. And we get our documentation, okay? This feature is only available over HTTPS, which is actually pretty fine, okay? We can also do it locally. It's available locally when we're doing it, when we just have a file open. Okay, so that works too, HTTPS or on a file. It does not work on HTTP. In case you ever decide to put this up somewhere and it's only HTTP, pretty much everything's HTTPS anyway, so you don't need to worry about that, okay? The way it works is like this, the syntax, navigator.geolocation. So navigator, in case you didn't know, because we haven't talked about this, navigator inside our JavaScript, when we are in the context of a browser, or even actually if you just went to your browser here and you went inspect and you typed in the word navigator, navigator refers to your browser. Okay, it is an object provided by your browser. Okay, it's an object created and provided by your browser, and it contains a bunch of information. This is weird. All these things are weird. Consider I'm using Chrome. It says app code name Mozilla, app name Netscape. Okay. But at some place in here, it says my 5.0. I think at some point in time, Chrome was based off of Mozilla, and they've split up. I don't know the history of all this, but I think that's where it comes in. Okay. Okay. So, but this navigator object, it's available all the time. We haven't looked at it. It allows us to ask it has a bunch of functions. It has a bunch of functionality. It allows us to like get this URL bar. It allows us to go forward and back. It allows us to manage the history, right? All this history. Okay. We can manage all that through this navigator object. We're not going to learn about that. Okay. There's a lot of stuff we're not going to learn about. There's a lot of stuff I'm not going to teach you. You have to assume, though, that you can do everything, anything. Your question is, can I do this? The answer is yes. The how you do it is the harder response, but like, yeah, sure, you can do that. You can do just about anything you want. Okay, so we're going to use Navigator, and we're going to use navigator.geolocation. What is it? Yeah, geolocation. Okay, so there's another object on there, dot get current position. And get current position is a function, and it takes 3 parameters. It takes 2 callbacks, callback 1, callback 2, and a list of options as an object. So this callback 1, this is almost kind of like a promise. Callback 1 is what happens on success. The user, so what this will do, it requires 3 arguments. So, function, yeah, let's just do that. By default, it pops that thing up. Okay, you see that popped it up. If you click on allow, it runs the first function. Success. Okay, they allowed us. If you click on block, it runs the second function. Fail. Okay. The third piece, options, allow us to change a couple pieces of information, like what we're asking for. And again, all of that is accessible in here. Okay. So success. So we get, it takes up to 3 pieces. So navigator.geolocation.get current position. It takes a success callback, an error callback, and an options. So the error and the options are optional. Success is not optional. We need at least one callback. In the options, we get to determine the maximum age, the timeout. So maximum age. Once you ask someone for their position, your browser saves that position. Your browser saves not the position. It saves. Actually, that's a great question. I don't know if it saves their current position or if it saves their preference as though they were allowed. That's interesting. I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that this. Once you ask for their position and they click allow, if I refresh this page, it doesn't ask again. Okay, it saves that preference. And that is what this maximum age is. Timeout is how long before this pop-up shows up. See, that pop-up shows up immediately, but we can change that with timeout if we wanted to. I don't know why you wanted to. And then third is enable high accuracy. So high accuracy means it might take a little bit longer to determine the location. And we're talking milliseconds, and it might need to fire up the user's GPS on their device, but we get a better accuracy. So closer latitude and longitude. Okay. By default, it's set to false. So if you wanted to include any of these options, it kind of ends up looking like this. Here's a giant example. They just set like some options here. We'll say enable high accuracy, okay, which is an object. A function for success with a position, a function for error with an error code, and then navigator.geolocation.getCurrentPosition. Success function, error function, and any options that we want to include. And if I were to take this and go run it on my bus app, okay, it pops up and it says it wants to know my location. There is a difference between it on your local file system, it does not remember your preference. So if you click allow this time and you refresh your page, it will ask you again next time. And it will ask you again every single time you load the page. That's how it works on the local file system. But on an actual URL, it actually saves that preference. Okay. Now, this is asynchronous. Okay, this is asynchronous because it did not stop the rest of the code, the rest of the page from running. Look, I can still use the rest of the page. All that rest of the JavaScript is still working. So this is asynchronous. So I cannot, over here, like in this case, I cannot display this map and pop a position for the pin until I get that response back. Okay. So get current position is asynchronous, and it takes two functions and options. Inside this function, we get a position object that includes coordinates, longitude, latitude, and accuracy within meters. So actually, now that I said okay over here, as soon as I say okay, that success function will run and will get this information. Allow. Your current position is latitude, longitude, more or less 31 meters. Okay. If I refresh this page, it'll prompt me again because it never remembers. If I click block, I'll run this error function, okay, which will print out an error code and an error message. User denied geolocation. That's it. Okay. If I turn off my high accuracy or get rid of these options here, Okay. Last time I was about 31 meters accurate. Now I'm a 29 meters accurate. So I turned off high accuracy and I'm more accurate. You can get away with really just putting in success. Okay. And you can just kind of do it as a anonymous inline function if you wanted to. Right. So you get this. There you go.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if, let's say if a user allows to get a location, but they don't have like a device or some hardware to tell the location, what will the value of latitude and longitude?
I believe, like, so if you don't have a GPS, I believe that there's some sort of triangulation that goes on your machine using Wi-Fi and using IP. Like, I don't exactly know how location works on a machine that doesn't have a GPS, but I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure that there's some way of determining where you are based on who your internet provider is, what your IP is, some Wi-Fi signals around you. But like my desktop computer doesn't even have Wi-Fi, right? It doesn't have a GPS. It doesn't even have Wi-Fi. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, so I was just wondering, so at least the latitude and longitude will have a value instead of like undefined.
It should. If it's successful, it should. Yeah. I wonder if it mentions that. It doesn't mention anything in here. A geolocation position object. Let's dig in a little bit. The speed and the speed of the object concerned. Interesting that it tells you the speed. Yeah, I don't know how it figures that out. Maybe it modifies the accuracy. It's like, we think you're here within 20 kilometers of accuracy, right? It's got me within 29 meters of accuracy. So that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Not something I've ever dug into, but definitely something that if you're building an app on this, you might be interested for. If you care about those users, if you care about the desktop computer users, or you care about the people who turn off their GPS. But I'm also guessing that there is a cache. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Guess I can try by like just open the website and then disconnect my internet to see what will happen.
Yes. I would try it from a desktop. I would try it from a desktop computer if you have one that doesn't have Wi-Fi, that has like a hardwired connection. Because even if you turn off your Wi-Fi, your GPS and your Wi-Fi are separate. So I don't know if laptops have Wi-Fi. Oh, sorry, if laptops have GPS or not. It's a good question. But yeah.
In desktop, you can, or if you use a device that you don't have a GPS, but you can get the location, the location with the IP.
Yes, but I don't know if you can access the IP via JavaScript.
Well, the location API get the real location with the IP. I don't know if you access.
You can't get the IP in JavaScript. That's the problem. You can only get the IP server side. You can't get it client side. So that's one of the limitations here. So you can't get the IP. If you had the IP, yes, absolutely. You can find their location via IP. So on the server side, again, you'll deal with that later. Okay, but you can't get it with IP here.
But I mean that the browser know your IP, right? The browser
yes.
don't deliver the IP to your JavaScript program, but they give the location.
Yeah, so the browser knows your IP. Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm assuming. So that's how I'm assuming that they would figure it out. But again, you would want to test that. Okay. That's geolocation with Navigator. So navigator.geolocation.get current location. Any question on that? Pretty straightforward. Okay. Pretty cool. Very cool.
I got this
I think.
nitty-gritty thing.
Okay.
So after reading the document on just now, because there's a navigator with lowercase and the uppercase. Is there a difference?
Yeah, this is probably the class navigator.
Okay.
Right? One is the prototype.
Yeah.
And one is an instance.
So the lowercase is the instance.
Yeah. So this would be the one that you would say new navigator.
Right.
But they probably did navigator equals new navigator. And they did this for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the difference. I bet you navigator dot constructor should be navigator. Yeah, capital N navigator. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Let's talk about maps then. So I'm just going to, I'll just delete all this stuff here. Delete all this stuff here, and we'll delete all this stuff here on the main, the table, and we're going to insert a map into here, okay? So we have our, I just pulled this stuff out of my Nextbus app here. Okay, so I have a container right here on the right-hand side that used to contain my buses. I'm going to put a big map on here. Okay, I'm going to put a big map on here. We're going to get that from Mapbox. So Mapbox has a lot of different stuff, which is why I was a little resistant to doing this. But at the same time, it's super cool and we can do so many things. And I feel like if you have someone walking you through it and pointing you at the right things, it shouldn't be too bad. So once you're logged in, you have your account. Okay, if you go to your account itself will have your public token. So this is essentially your key, your API key. Okay, so you're going to need that. You can also get it through tokens. You go to tokens, default public token. Okay. You need access tokens. You need API access token to configure Mapbox GL.js, Mapbox Web Services. Read more about API access tokens. So we are going to use two different things, but today we're just going to look at Mapbox GL.js. Okay. So if you go to dashboard, wherever you are, you'll see somewhere start by designing a map or install the Maps SDK. If you go to web, it'll HTML. This is one way to do it. I prefer the integrate Mapbox link. Tools and resources, integrate Mapbox. You can even go to documentation. Okay. And we're going to be doing it on web, and this will give you to the same thing. Or you can click on documentation at the top. We're using Mapbox GL.js. Click on that, and this will bring you to the documentation. Okay. But I have a direct link here that says import Mapbox GL as shown in the Quick Start Guide. So just click on that, and that'll bring you to the Quick Start Guide. So essentially what you need, include this JavaScript and this CSS file in the head of your HTML. Easy peasy, copy, bring that over here. And again, you're going to want to put this before your JavaScript because we're going to be doing stuff with it in our JavaScript. So make sure it's placed before your JavaScript. So my JavaScript is here. I'm placing it before my JavaScript. I'm going to just reorganize this because I like my style sheets together and I like my JavaScript together. Okay, so you're going to need both of those. You're going to need the CSS style sheet that they provide to style the maps, and you're going to need the library itself. Next, it says, include the following code in the body of your HTML file. And it looks like this script tag here, okay? Now, we all know that just like CSS, there are multiple ways to include JavaScript. And we also know that inlining our JavaScript is probably not the best way to do it, especially since we want to build a whole app around this. So we're not going to do it here. Even though it told us to, we're not going to do better than this. This is a getting started guide for the very stupid, okay? And we are experienced programmers. So what we're going to do is we're just going to, instead of doing exactly what it said, we're going to cut this out. We're just going to eliminate that. We're going to pop on over to app.js, and we're going to insert it into here. So, and then we're going to just break it apart a little bit. Okay. Here, we just have mapboxgl.accessToken. So mapboxgl is an object that was created and provided by this script that they provided on line 55. Okay. And we give it our access token. And so they've already told us that we need to do this. We copied and pasted this. This is us using that object that they created to create a new map. And it requires a container to put it in. The container, if you look through the Mapbox documentation, is an ID of an element on our page. So we don't have an element with an ID. So let's go create, we're going to put it in the container main, this main container here. But main does not contain an ID, so we're going to add ID equals main. And it will look, this function will automatically look for that container and insert a map into it. Okay, so watch what happens. So here, we're next bus. We're going to refresh this page. And here's our map. And it's fully functional. We can zoom in. There you go, just like that. Okay, so this little piece here, plus these two lines of code, allowed us to insert a map. Cool. Now, this doesn't give me all the information I need. Because clearly I don't want to just put a map like this, right? I want to zoom in on the current user's location, right? So let's talk about how we might do that. How might we do that? Well, I can tell you this. I can tell you that in order to, let's go back here. So I've already done the quick start guide. You'll need to, example of displaying a simple map. So I have a very simple map here, okay, that they have an example of it, okay. They have a sample of how you can center a map on a location and how you can zoom in on a map. Okay, they have that here. They also have information about how you can drop a marker onto a map. So if you combine those pieces, dropping a marker, centering a map, zooming a map in with this geolocation, you should be able to get the longitude and latitude from this geolocation and print out a map to the screen with it. Okay, and drop the pin. That is phase one. And so I've included links to all these little things. So phase one is ask the user for the current position. Remember, it's asynchronous. So what I showed you here is not exactly what you need to do. You're going to need to do some thinking and some problem solving on how do you display this map after you get the location, so that way you can use the location to properly center the map and drop a pin. Most of the information is here. You're missing literally 6 lines of code and a little bit of jigging around stuff. Phase 2 is using the geocoding API. I've included a link to the API endpoint. Oh. That's interesting. I thought I included a link to the API endpoint. Phase 2. Good. There we go. To the API endpoint that you're going to need to use. Okay. So part of this is discovery. Part of this is learning on your own. I've done this. I did this. I put all the directions together. I think it's reasonably clear. But there are definitely, part of this is also definitely coming back and asking questions when you don't know how to do something, asking questions when you're unclear about something. Okay, this isn't an assignment, this is an exercise. But I guarantee we are going to use maps in the final project. Okay, so final project, I'm just going to say, go build this, okay, with some information. But it's going to be really, again, up to you to, so you have to make sure that you're comfortable using this to a certain degree. Okay, but I've included a lot of different information pieces here. Currently, I would say work on this at the speed of, I would like this done by end of day Friday. That's where I'd like to get to. Like I'd like to go through this at 2 o'clock Friday afternoon, kind of thing. Maybe 1:30, and then give you the assignment for the weekend. That would be ideal. But I'm playing it by ear because I don't know how long this will take you. I've never gotten students to do this before. This is brand new, just made it up. So that's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's a lot of time. I'm hoping we can go over this by Friday morning, actually. So you have all day today. I don't have any gulp stuff for you today. I'm going to kill that because I don't have time to go through it. I don't want to keep you too much longer. So we'll just go through some gulp stuff tomorrow. We'll also talk about this exercise tomorrow morning, okay, as you build it. I'll answer questions. We could talk about the API. We can talk about once you have. I know some of you are going to finish it tonight. Some of you are probably already done. I just gave it to you 10 minutes ago, but I feel like that's how it is. Any questions about this?
So it's not about this exercise. I have a general question about actually having a question. So my guideline for myself that I play with is that if I find something that I'm not sure of, I go research, and then I ask friends, and then I go to you, Zach, if available. So that's how it goes, and it usually takes me about 3 hours per very small problem if I just went straight to you or Zach.
So you're saying it usually takes you 3 hours to perform all those tasks, research on your own, ask a friend, then finally, yeah? And so your question is?
So if I just go straight to Zach or you, or just ask our friends, it's actually a lot faster. Do you think that would be actually okay to do that way? Because I think that's a lot more efficient. I'm losing a lot of sleep here.
Well, it's up to you to balance that. Right? Right. There is no right answer for that question.
So it just depends. Okay.
Right. The right answer is you can come right to us immediately. Okay. Right. But you're losing a lot of valuable learning opportunities because, and again, in the real world, you can't just go to your boss.
Right.
Or your senior developer. You have to put in effort into researching it yourself. Now the question is, how much time are you putting into researching? And this is an important thing for all of you. So, Saria, how much time, if this is taking you 3 hours per question, how much time is it taking you to research?
The research takes about
how much
more
time
than
are you
2
spending?
hours.
Okay, so maybe that's your problem. Right? Maybe you're putting too much time into research. Because if I had you as an employee, like just pretend, and I came to you and I said, so what have you been doing all day? And you said, oh, I ran into this problem at 9 o'clock this morning and I didn't want to ask you. So I spent the last 6 hours researching on how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to say that.
So I say, sorry, you did what? You spent the last 6 hours researching how to do it and you still don't have the answer? Why didn't you just come to me? Right? But on the other hand, if you immediately ran into a problem at 9 o'clock in the morning and at 9:02, you're like, John, how do I do this? Then I'd be like, why don't you spend any time researching? And so it's this constant balance that we need to figure out. How much time and effort do I need to put in to research this? And when should I stop and simply ask the question to someone who probably knows the answer? Because you can't, if you just stop, if you don't even bother and you just skip the research entirely and you go right to the person who has the answer, you're not learning. But if you spend so much time that you're researching and you're never going to the person, people are going to get upset with you because you're like wasting time.
Okay.
So spend 20 minutes researching, right? Spend half an hour. Don't spend 5 hours.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Good question. Really delicate balance that you have to strike. And some developers, that can be career suicide because they just refuse to ask questions or they never do anything on their own. And so striking that balance is really important. Okay, so I would say from a teacher's perspective, give it a fair shot. Take at least 15 minutes, 20 minutes to do a little bit of research. At least Google a couple things and look at a couple things and see if you can figure it out on your own. If you can't do it in 15, 20 minutes, ask a friend, ask a teacher. Okay, cool. Don't do 3 hours.
Hey, John?
Yes.
Kind of a question in the same vein. Do you mind if we share our repos with each other after submissions?
No problem. No problem. After submissions, after review, you guys can talk all you want, share your repos all you want. What I don't want, and I've had this happen, I don't want current students sharing their repositories or their information with future students. So like, that doesn't apply to you right now, but it may apply to you in 4 months. I've had to go to existing students and punish them for sharing, for like participating in academic dishonesty with someone not in their current class, but someone in the like class behind them. Because I don't like, I'll be honest, I do reuse assignments, right? Because it takes me a long time to come up with this stuff. I like to tweak it, but just don't share it with previous people. But yeah, share it with each other all you want. Talk about it all you want. No problems. Yeah. The way I see it is once it's done and you've built it, it's yours. You can do whatever, pretty much whatever you want with it. Okay. Any other questions? So this course is very different than our previous courses. We're not learning as much on a day-to-day basis. I hope that's okay. I hope that you're enjoying building these bigger projects and learning about just software development, because like sometimes at a certain point, you just got to build things, right? And sometimes I feel like some of the students rush through the first half of this program, just learning, and building small things that we don't build anything meaningful or interesting. And I feel like the stuff that we're doing right now, again, is just a little bit more meaningful and interesting. And it gives us an opportunity to really apply some of the skills and think about these problems. And again, you'll have to forgive me for being a little bit vague on some of this instruction. It is intentional, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing and a lot of the positions that I'm putting you in are very realistic, okay? I'm not just being a mean teacher or anything. I'm trying to put you in a realistic position when it's safe. I'm not going to fire you, right? Your assignments are worth 10%, 15%. When it comes to the final project, it's going to be reasonable. It's going to be based on things that you've already done. It's not going to be this brand new thing. But the lessons that you're learning along the way are going to contribute greatly. If you don't do the work, as you know, you've been through my program already. If you don't work, then the final project will be hurtful, okay, will be painful. So just keep it up. Really great work on this previous project. You guys are killing it, okay? So I'm really happy with the way things are going. Keep it up. And you know what, if things go really well, then we'll have an extended amount of time again for the next assignment. Okay. Probably over a long weekend, which means you'll have some time to relax, but you'll also have some work that you'll be able to put in and some thinking that you can do. If there's no more questions, I need to get food in my stomach.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, John, like what you're saying. I actually think it's nice that we've kind of slowed down the learning and taken time to kind of refine our skills instead, because, you know, at some point it was kind of overwhelming. Just like you'd finish something, then learn something new right away. And actually utilize what we've learned. And I feel like, yeah, it's been good just kind of building and putting everything together that way.
I agree. Start getting that mastery of the tools that you already have instead of continuing to pile on new tools, right? Like, let's just stop piling on the tools and start developing a mastery. And because at the end of the day, this is going to be as valuable, if not more valuable, to your career, to your job hunt, to your internship, as piling on more tools. Putting on more things on your resume is not as valuable as being able to talk intelligently about the stuff that's already on there. So we're going for that. We're going for more of a, I'm going for a more level of mastery than trying to just check more boxes. Yeah, I learned this. Yeah, I learned that. Yeah, I learned that. Right. So good. I'm glad you're, okay, cool. So as always, I'm here in the afternoon. Zach's, I don't know what's up with Zach. Sometimes he's here, sometimes he's not here. So we'll find out. But again, spend some time researching on your own, then start asking questions. Okay, very good lesson. Not too much time though. And we'll see you tomorrow at 8:45. We'll do some golf. We'll review and we'll do some new stuff. Okay? Have a great afternoon. I will see you later.